The house was never quiet for long, not when my stepmother was around. She had a voice that carried through the walls, polished and polite whenever my father was home, sharp and cutting the moment he stepped out. When Dad was there, she'd call me my dear and smile as though we were one big happy family. But the second the front door closed behind him, that smile vanished like smoke. Suddenly, I was the unwanted guest again, the reminder of a woman she could never replace. I tried to stay out of her way, doing my chores, keeping my space small and quiet. My two stepsisters, Clara and May, lived like princesses, new phones, new dresses, laughter that filled the hallways. I was just there, the forgotten daughter. My father once told me something in confidence, something that made my heart pound with both pride and fear. "You're my heir, Lydia," he said softly one night. "No matter what happens, everything I have will be yours one day. But you must keep this between us. No one can know." I nodded, but the weight of that secret sat heavy on my chest. Because if my stepmother ever found out, she would never forgive me for existing. Michael was the one person who made life bearable. He was gentle, funny, and treated me like I mattered. But my stepmother refused to get me a phone. "You don't need one," she said, though her daughters each had the latest model. So I borrowed Clara's whenever I needed to text him. She didn't mind at first, or maybe she just pretended not to. Every evening, I'd sneak into her room when she was watching TV downstairs and send him messages. We'd talk about everything: school, dreams, how we'd run away someday when I turned 18. He said he loved me, and I believed him.
Then one week, the messages stopped. No good mornings. No replies. Nothing. I asked Clara if he had texted her number, since that was the one he used. She said no, with that same careless tone she used when she didn't care enough to lie properly. But something about her eyes made my stomach twist. Days passed. I missed him terribly. Then one evening, Clara came downstairs in a red dress that shimmered in the light, hair curled perfectly, perfume filling the air. "You look beautiful," I said. "Where are you going?" She smiled. "On a date. First one with a really amazing guy." I helped her zip the dress, never imagining what was coming. A few minutes later, the doorbell rang. She jumped up, grabbing her purse. "I'll get it," she said quickly, almost too quickly. Something didn't sit right. I went upstairs and peeked through the window toward the gate. The moment I saw who stood there, the world stopped moving. It was Michael. My Michael. He was leaning against his car, holding white daisies, my favorite flowers. Clara stepped out, her smile wide and confident. He opened the car door for her. She laughed. And then they drove away, leaving the gate swinging slowly behind them. I ran downstairs, shouting her name, but it was useless. They were gone. My chest felt hollow, my eyes burned, and in that moment I realized she had lied to me all along. She had been reading every message, every word, pretending not to know until she decided to take him for herself. I went to bed that night with tears soaking my pillow, the kind of tears that come from betrayal, not heartbreak. I shouldn't have used her phone. I shouldn't have trusted her. I didn't know then that this was just the beginning, that everything was about to get much worse. Weeks later, Clara and Michael were officially together. She flaunted him around the house, showing off the same man who used to hold my hand under the stars. My stepmother adored him instantly, calling him a good young man and inviting him to dinner. Every laugh they shared across the table felt like a knife. But I stayed quiet. Because my father's secret still echoed in my mind: his estate, his trust, my inheritance. I began to see things differently. My stepmother's kindness wasn't kindness at all, it was calculation. And Clara's betrayal wasn't just about love, it was about power. One evening, I overheard them talking in the kitchen. My stepmother's voice was low but sharp. "If she's really the heir, we need to find proof," she said. "Your father won't be around forever." Clara sighed. "Don't worry, Mom. I'll find a way to get it. She trusts me." That night, I stayed awake, heart pounding. So it was true, they suspected something. They wanted what was mine. And they were using Michael to get it. I decided to act before they did. A few days later, I borrowed May's old tablet and created a new number online. Then I texted Michael from it, pretending to be my father's lawyer. I said, "We've finalized Lydia's inheritance documents. The estate will soon be transferred." It didn't take long. The next day, I caught Clara in my room, rifling through my drawers. When I confronted her, she froze. "What are you doing?" I asked. She tried to smile. "I was just looking for my charger." "Is that what you tell Mom too?" I said quietly. "When you're stealing what doesn't belong to you?" Her eyes widened. "You think you're smarter than me, Lydia? You're just a stupid little girl. Michael doesn't even want you anymore." I stepped closer. "You mean the same Michael who's been messaging a fake lawyer for 2 weeks?" Her face drained of color. In that moment, she realized I knew everything. How she'd plotted with Mom. How she'd used Michael to try to get to me. I took a deep breath. "You can have the boy," I said softly. "But remember this, everything else belongs to me. And soon enough, so will the truth." That night, I showed Dad the screenshots, messages between Clara and her mother, their plan to steal from me. I didn't need to say much. His face turned pale, his voice broke when he called them both downstairs. By morning, the house that once smelled of expensive candles now reeked of exposed lies. My stepmother couldn't hide behind her sweet words anymore. Dad sent her and her daughters away. I stood by the window as they packed, my heart heavy but calm. Clara looked at me one last time, eyes full of hate. I didn't hate her back. I just felt sorry. Because in trying to destroy me, she'd destroyed herself. And sometimes, that's how life works. The people who try hardest to take what's yours end up losing what they had. I used my stepsister's phone once, and I lost my boyfriend. She used my life to play her games, and she lost everything. In the end, I didn't need revenge. The truth did it for me. After I saw Michael drive away with Clara, the world felt strangely quiet, like the air itself had paused to watch what I would do next. I sat on the edge of my bed, my fingers trembling, staring at the window where the two of them had disappeared minutes earlier. My room felt smaller than ever, the shadows stretching across the walls like they were trying to swallow me. And for the first time in a long time, I didn't know whether I wanted the night to end or stay exactly the same so nothing worse could happen. I didn't sleep. I lay awake until the sun rose, my mind spinning with 1,000 questions. How long had Clara and Michael been talking? Had it started while I was still using her phone? Was he laughing at me behind my back? Did he ever really love me at all? By morning, my eyes were heavy and swollen, but I forced myself to go downstairs for breakfast, pretending nothing was wrong. Clara was already there, humming softly as she buttered toast, looking like a girl whose world was perfect and peaceful. She looked at me for a second, one quick, victorious glance, and then turned away, smiling to herself. But she didn't say a word. She didn't need to. That smile told me everything. Michael was hers now. And she wanted me to know she had one. I ate silently, trying not to let my stepmother notice the storm inside me. She was mixing pancake batter, acting unusually cheerful. She only acted like this when Dad wasn't home, and she wanted something. She glanced at me and said, "Good morning, dear," but the word dear felt sharp, like a knife turned upside down, smooth, but dangerous. I nodded quietly. She didn't know anything yet. Not about Michael. Not about the texts. Not about Clara's betrayal. But she would soon, I thought. Because women like her never stopped digging when they sensed weakness. And right now, heartbreak was written all over my face. Later that day, I checked Clara's phone when she went upstairs to shower. I don't know what I expected. Maybe messages between her and Michael laughing about me, or screenshots of my old texts. But what I saw was somehow worse. There were no messages between them at all. Not a single one. My breath caught in my throat. I scrolled up and down, checking every corner of the conversation. It was clean. Too clean. That meant one thing: she had deleted everything. Every word they exchanged. Every secret. Every plan. She didn't want proof. She didn't want traces. She wanted to hide something. I put the phone down, my hands ice cold. This wasn't just a crush or a stolen boyfriend. This was deliberate. Calculated. Careful. I started watching her more closely after that. She texted someone constantly, but always turned her screen away when I entered the room. She smiled at her phone too often. And every night she applied new makeup, tried new hairstyles, wore new clothes. Michael was only one piece of the puzzle. Something else was going on too. One evening, I overheard her talking quietly on the phone in her room. Her voice was soft, almost nervous. "Don't worry, he believes me," she whispered. "I'll ask her tomorrow. I'll find it. Just trust me." I froze by the door. Who was she talking to? And what exactly did she need to find? That night, my father came home late. He called me into his study again, asking about school, about my homework, about life. I tried to answer normally, but he studied my face carefully. "Are you sure you're all right?" he asked. His voice was calm but full of fatherly worry. I wanted to tell him. I wanted to cry in his arms and confess everything, how Clara betrayed me, how Michael left me, how I felt like I was drowning. But I kept quiet, because something told me that if my stepmother sensed I was falling apart, she would strike harder. And I wasn't ready to give her that power. Instead, I said, "I'm fine, Dad. Just tired." He didn't believe me, but he didn't push. Before I left, he squeezed my hand gently. "Remember what I told you," he whispered. "You are my heir. Be cautious." That word, heir, no longer felt comforting. It felt dangerous. Soon after, Clara's behavior shifted again. She and my stepmother whispered more often, always glancing at me from the corner of their eyes. They searched drawers they had no reason to open. They asked questions they never used to ask. Where did I keep my notebooks? Did I ever look into Dad's office drawers? Had he ever given me something special? One night, their whispers slipped through the hallway like cold wind. "She must know where it is," my stepmother said harshly. "She's not stupid. You just need to get closer to her. Gain her trust." And Clara replied softly, "I will." Michael is helping. My heart nearly stopped. So Michael wasn't just stolen. He was being used. By her. By them. Against me. The next morning at breakfast, Clara sat beside me. She never sat beside me. She placed her hand gently on my shoulder, smiling sweetly in a way that almost made me sick. "I'm sorry if I've been distant," she said, as if we were old friends who simply drifted apart. "I really want us to get along." I watched her carefully, my face calm, my heart guarded. She wanted to get close. She wanted information. She wanted access. And she wanted it fast. But beneath her sweetness, I could sense fear. Fear that I knew something. Fear that I might expose her. Fear that the secret she and her mother were chasing might still be in my hands. I no longer cried at night. I no longer felt broken. Something inside me had shifted slowly, quietly, painfully. I was still hurting, but now the hurt was becoming strength. A different kind of strength. Silent strength. The kind a person gains when betrayal wakes up a part of them they didn't know existed. I started pretending too, smiling at Clara, laughing at her jokes, thanking her for helping me. I acted like the girl she wanted to trick. The one she thought was naive. The one she thought would never see the storm coming. I watched her more carefully than she watched me. I listened more quietly than she whispered. I let her think she was winning. Because episode 3, the day everything explodes, was already forming in my mind. I didn't know exactly how yet, but I knew this. If Clara thought she had played me, she had no idea the game had just begun. The days after my father confronted my stepmother and her daughters felt unreal, like living inside someone else's story. The house had turned quiet, too quiet, as if the walls were still shocked by everything they heard. My stepmother refused to look at me, Clara avoided me completely, and May, the youngest, wandered around, confused and frightened, unsure of what was happening. Suitcases stayed packed in the living room for 2 whole days. My father didn't rush to throw them out, even though he had every right to. He wasn't a man of quick anger. He was a man who believed in giving people one last chance to come clean. But my stepmother didn't come clean. Not once. She walked through the house with icy silence, her pride too thick to admit the truth. But pride, I soon learned, can be more dangerous than anger. On the 3rd night, I woke to a soft knock on my door. I sat up, startled. I thought it might be Dad, but when I opened the door, I found May standing there, her eyes red and swollen. She looked small and terrified, clutching her blanket like a shield. "Can I sleep here?" she whispered. I nodded and let her in. She crawled onto my bed, pulling the blanket tightly around her shoulders. For a long moment she stayed silent, staring at the floor. Then she whispered something that made my heart stop. "Mom said she's going to fix everything tonight." Everything. That word hit me like a punch. "Fix what?" I asked carefully. May hesitated, her voice trembling. "She said you're trying to ruin our lives. She said we'll lose everything if you stay here. She said she won't let that happen." A chill ran down my spine. Stepmother had always been unpredictable, but never reckless. Never like this. Something had snapped inside her. Maybe it was fear. Maybe it was the inheritance. Maybe it was losing control. But one thing was certain, she wasn't leaving without a fight. I gently took May's hand. "You're safe here." "Don't worry," I said, though my own heart was racing. After she fell asleep, I slipped out of the room and headed toward the hallway. The house was silent except for faint movements downstairs, soft, careful, almost sneaky. I crept toward the staircase and peered down. My stepmother was in the study. My father's study. The one place she had no right to enter, ever. Her back was to me, her hands frantically pulling open drawers, shuffling papers, searching, destroying, desperate. She looked like a woman possessed, hair messy, breath heavy, fingers trembling violently. And then I understood. She was looking for the will. My father's will. The document that made me the heir. She wasn't trying to fix everything. She was trying to erase me. I felt the floor tilt under my feet. I knew I had to stop her before she did something unforgivable. I stepped down the staircase slowly, each step a storm inside my chest. But before I reached the bottom, her voice pierced through the silence. "I know you're there." She didn't turn around. She didn't need to. Her voice was colder than winter. "Do you think you've won?" she hissed. "Do you think he'll really choose you over us? Over me? You're a child. A foolish, naive child who doesn't know how the world works." I stepped into the room. My hands were shaking, but my voice was steady. "This isn't about choosing. It's about the truth." She finally turned. Her eyes were wild, bright with anger or fear, I still don't know which. "The truth," she spat. "The truth is that your father owes me more than this. I carried him through his worst years. I gave him a home, stability. I took care of this house while you—" She paused, her gaze slicing through me. "While you took his heart." There it was. The real motive. Not money. Not inheritance. But jealousy. The one thing no stepmother ever admits to. "You should have stayed small," she whispered. "You should have stayed quiet." Before I could respond, she reached into the drawer and pulled out something shiny, metallic. For a moment, I froze. She wasn't holding a weapon, but something almost worse, a lighter. She flicked it on. A small flame danced in her eyes. "If I can't find the will," she said slowly, "I can destroy everything else he keeps in this room. And when he sees the damage, he'll blame you." She moved toward the stack of papers on the desk. My voice cracked open. "Stop. You don't know what you're doing." But she did. She knew exactly what she was doing. The flame crept lower toward the documents, licking the air with dangerous hunger. For a split second, I imagined it, all his life's work, his legal papers, his memories, his trust, burning right in front of me. I lunged forward. Not thinking. Not planning. Just moving. I grabbed her wrist. "Stop." She struggled, her grip tightening on the lighter. It slipped from her hand and clattered across the floor. The flame died instantly. For a moment, everything was still. Then she broke. Right there. She collapsed into a chair, covering her face with her hands. Her sobs filled the room, sharp and broken. I didn't feel victory. I didn't feel satisfaction. I felt something unexpected, pity. She wasn't a monster. She was a woman drowning in fear, losing everything she had built on lies, and watching it crumble faster than she could hold it together. The noise woke my father. He rushed into the study, and the moment he saw the mess, the drawers open, the papers scattered, the lighter on the floor, his face twisted with a pain I had never seen before. My stepmother looked up at him with red eyes. I just wanted to protect my daughters, she whispered. I was afraid. Afraid she would take everything. Dad shook his head silently. Not angry. Just tired. Deeply, heartbreakingly tired. He didn't yell. He didn't blame. He simply said 6 quiet words that ended everything. You cannot stay here anymore. She didn't fight it. She didn't beg. She just nodded. Morning came heavy and gray. My stepmother and Clara packed their bags without a word. May hugged me tightly before leaving, her tears soaking my shoulder. And just like that, the door closed behind them. Silence filled the house again. But this time, it wasn't painful. It was peaceful. Like a wound finally starting to heal. Dad put his hand on my shoulder. I'm sorry you had to go through all this, he said softly. I looked at him, finally understanding something I hadn't understood before. I wasn't just his heir. I was his daughter. And he trusted me. Completely. That night, I lay in bed thinking of everything that had happened, from Clara stealing Michael, to the lies, to the fear, to the desperate act in the study. For the first time in a long time, I didn't feel small. I didn't feel powerless. I felt strong. Steady. Certain. Sometimes, life breaks you just enough to show you the truth. Sometimes, betrayal becomes the teacher you never asked for. And sometimes, the people who try to destroy you end up destroying the parts of themselves they were trying to protect. My story didn't end with losing Michael. It didn't end with losing them. It began with finding myself. For 2 days, the house felt like a storm waiting to break. My stepsister walked around with a kind of careless happiness, humming, smiling at her phone, acting like nothing was happening. Meanwhile, I was trying to keep myself together, pretending to be normal while my chest felt like a cracked plate. That evening, Dad called all of us to the living room. He wanted to talk about a family vacation. My stepsister sat beside my stepmom, still glowing from whatever secret she was hiding. I sat quietly on the other end of the couch, twisting my fingers. My stepmom kept giving me cold side glances, the type that told me she was aware I was upset about something, and she desperately hoped it wasn't something that would bring trouble for her daughters. Then, as Dad was talking, my stepsister's phone lit up. I watched her eyes flick down at the screen, then widen. She panicked so hard she almost dropped the phone. Dad stopped talking. She quickly stood and rushed toward the hallway. But I knew that reaction. Something told me that message wasn't just any message. Something told me it was him. I followed her. She locked herself in the bathroom and whispered, "Why are you texting me? I told you not to call tonight." My breath caught. I pressed my ear against the door. All I heard was my boyfriend's voice spilling through the phone speaker, muffled, frustrated, angry. "You lied to me. You told me she never wanted to talk to me again." My knees almost gave out. She didn't know I was standing there. But I knew. I finally knew everything. And the worst part? I wasn't even angry. I was just done. Quietly, I walked away from the door, feeling something inside me tighten and then fall apart. The truth was out. But what I would do with it? That was the beginning of the real story.